Action makes us feel alive. It gives the illusion of control. But that which takes the most strength is the effort required to let go. Greetings, beloveds. This is Amy Caryn Johnson, the Earth Channel, trying something again a little different today. If you saw the video that I recorded live, I don't think many, if any, saw it live, but you may have seen the recording. You may notice that I am wearing the same thing. Yes, I am recording this on the same day that I went live on YouTube. As I mentioned there, I meant to go live on Facebook rather than YouTube, but it wasn't working, so I went to YouTube instead. I may do that again, so please let me know what you thought. Go check that one out as well. Today, I would like to talk about the next phase of the moon, continuing a 4-part series on lunar cycles and healing our relationship with them. Last week, we spoke about the waning gibbous moon into the last quarter. This will be continuing the last quarter, looking at the waning crescent to the dark moon. And in today's culture, we do typically refer to the dark moon as the new moon when it is reflecting no light from the sun to us here on Earth. However, in previous millennia, maybe perhaps previous centuries, the new moon was more so referred to at the time when there had just begun to be light again reflected by the moon from the sun to the earth. So just that waxing crescent that right after the moon had been dark, that was what was usually referred to as the new moon, because the light coming back to the moon is new for that month. Whereas what we now call the new moon, when it is dark, was referred to as the dark moon. And there is a difference for sure. So let me go ahead and channel a message from Gaia about this particular topic. It helps to focus on a topic when I'm channeling, almost the same way it would focus a channeler to be asked certain questions. However, I'm not getting a lot of interaction from you all just yet, so I am choosing the topics on which to focus. Part of the reason, just so you know, I haven't mentioned this in a while, is that I actually work a completely different full-time job, and I really enjoy it. And so this is completely separate and on my spare time. It's why I don't feel a great amount of pressure to make money doing it. It's why I am allowing myself to not make it always perfect. I think that's a good thing, just to be creative and put things out there and perhaps get better along the way, but not torment myself about every little detail every week, but rather just to let it flow as much as possible. It, in that way, is just a creative expression for me rather than being a job that is required to make a living for me. And eventually, I hope to get to that point where maybe it will support me, but I want it to flow out of and grow out of something that I enjoy so that that part of it continues, hopefully, rather than prematurely putting that pressure on it. Okay, so back to the waning crescent and dark moon focus for our message from Gaia. If you'd like to join me, take a few deep breaths and close your eyes. Hello, this is Gaia. As Amy alluded to in her opening poem, there comes a time when action needs to end. Much of the action going on in the world today is out of routine, out of habit, and out of obligation, perceived or real obligation. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that that action cannot still have a very good intention, a good purpose, a good outcome, and be of a high vibration. It can. And yet, so often when we get into that routine or habit of performing action out of obligation, which usually comes with certain routines and habits, we can lose touch with when it is time to stop. That action which is not necessarily done out of obligation may also have a certain sense of compulsion to it. For example, on the weekends, you may feel the need to be active, doing things, quote unquote, having fun, and yet you may not fully be present in that action, those activities, and therefore you may not even know if you're really having fun or not. You may not be having any fun. You may just be doing that which is perceived to be fun by our limited minds. The mind does not need to be limited necessarily. It is only limited when we, ironically, the word is mindlessly, get into these routines and are not present. Presence is what gives both action and inaction their high vibration, their full intention, and the ability to enjoy them as they are happening. And so as we approach Halloween, All Hallows Eve, All Saints Day, and the Day of the Dead, we invite you to contemplate when it is time for action to end. Or pause. When is it time to rest? When is it time to get quiet? And yes, there is a connection with endings and quote unquote death. We wanted to have a soft lead up to mentioning that word, death, because we know it carries such a charge for so many of you. And yet, all action, all things in this physical plane do come to an end and therefore have a kind of death. But if you look to the natural world, you may begin to perceive the cycles, the cyclical nature And the fact that, at least in one way or another, things never truly end, even in the physical world. Things decay, things change form, but then new life comes out of them. It may be in a different form, but it continues. As we shared last week, the dark moon is parallel to the first day of a woman's cycle, menstrual cycle. Many women may, in a similar way to those of you who are perpetually engaging in mindless action, a woman may fight against the need, perhaps, or even the inherent desire to rest on that first day, even though it may be there in her heart of hearts. There is great beauty and value to be gained from at least taking a little bit of quiet time on that day, as it is with the day of the dark moon or the night of the dark moon. If a woman is able to find as much time as possible to become quiet, to rest a bit more, to let it all go, she will likely find that she is able to flow, in more than one sense of the word, more easily with her cycle. This is not to say that there is any obligation for her to abstain from society on this day, for her to necessarily call in sick to work, or for her to refrain from any activity that she truly desires to partake in. That is not what we are saying, and we want to make that very clear. It is simply a good time to at least take a few moments, perhaps longer, to turn within and to listen to what your body and soul are telling you. Because the actions that we normally take throughout the rest of the month may be so loud that they are drowning out that voice, that knowing. We thank you so much for joining us. Namaste, beloveds. So again, I will just add a small insight or two to what Gaia shared there. I personally have found that if I can take a day off on the first day of my cycle, again, parallel to the collective's experience of the dark moon, I do feel more grounded. I feel more energy throughout the rest of the month. And yet that isn't always possible. So on those days when I'm not able to rest as much, I simply do my best to just partake in whatever action I really want to and I really need to. As I mentioned before, I do have a full-time job, so it isn't always possible for me. And that's okay. It's wonderful that we as women have all these ways that we can completely and easily function in society, no matter what day of the month it is for us. And yet we as a complete society, men and women, boys and girls, could benefit from taking more time to get quiet, contemplate, meditate, whatever that means for you, whatever feels best to you, but to truly listen within for that small voice, that peace, our needs, and to just let it go. And once you can let things go from your mind, the spinning wheels that sometimes occur, maybe often occur, the more you begin to slow down a little bit, at least once a month, the more you can sort through those and make sense of them, let some of them go at least, and really begin to perceive what your priorities are and which things are unnecessary, which things you can truly let go without anything falling apart that shouldn't fall apart. I hope that makes sense. I felt like this was an appropriate message to happen on the weekend of Halloween and All Hallows Eve. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks so much for joining me. Namaste, beloveds.